The demonstration room was packed with representatives from 40 different species. Daquan stood near the back, his arms crossed as he watched the Srellan Empire prepare their big reveal. The tall lizard-like aliens moved with obvious pride, their scales gleaming under the bright lights of Council Station Nexus 7. Day was tired. He had been a pilot once, back when Earth needed fighters to defend their small corner of space. Now he was a diplomatic attaché, which meant a lot of standing around at boring presentations. He missed flying. They certainly know how to build suspense, Ambassador Hana Yoon whispered beside him. She was his boss, a smart woman who had spent 20 years dealing with alien politics. Her gray hair was tied back neatly, and she wore the dark blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. Too much suspense. Day muttered back. They've been talking for 30 minutes and haven't shown us anything yet. High Commander Thesic stood on the central platform, his red scales marked with golden patterns that showed his rank. He was massive, nearly 8 feet tall, with a chest that seemed wider than Day's entire body. When he spoke, his voice boomed through the translation devices everyone wore. For 3 centuries, the Srellan Empire has led the galaxy in military technology, Thesic announced. Our fighters are the fastest. Our weapons are the strongest. Our pilots are the most skilled. Day rolled his eyes. The Srellans were good, he had to admit, but they never missed a chance to remind everyone about it. Today, we unveil our greatest achievement, Thesic continued. The Apex-class starfighter represents the future of space combat. Smaller, faster, and more deadly than anything you have ever seen. The lights dimmed. A large panel in the floor began to rise, revealing a sleek fighter ship. It was beautiful, Day had to admit. The ship's black surface seemed to absorb light, and blue energy lines glowed along its edges. It was compact, maybe 2/3 the size of a standard council fighter. The crowd murmured with appreciation. Camera drones buzzed around the ship, sending images across the galaxy. The Apex represents revolutionary engineering, Thesic said, walking around the fighter with obvious pride. Our designers created a neural interface system so advanced, so precise, that it requires perfect synchronization between pilot and machine. The cockpit is built for maximum efficiency. Every control is within instant reach. Every system responds to thought as much as touch. Pilot Master Vraxen, the Srellan Empire's most famous fighter race, climbed onto the platform. His black scales had silver markings from years of combat. He nodded to Thesic and approached the fighter. The Apex cockpit is designed for the superior Srellan physiology, Thesic continued. Our compact build, our quick reflexes, our advanced neural structure. These fighters will make us unstoppable. Day leaned forward slightly. Something about those words bothered him. He studied the fighter more carefully. The cockpit canopy was small, much smaller than he expected for pilots as large as the Srellans. Vraxen climbed into the cockpit, and Day noticed something. The pilot had to squeeze himself in, his shoulders pressed against the sides of the cockpit. When he reached for the controls, his movements looked cramped. Interesting, Hana whispered. She had noticed too. The demonstration continued. Vraxen powered up the fighter, and the room filled with a low humming sound. Holographic displays showed the fighter systems coming online. The Apex lifted smoothly off the platform and moved through a series of basic maneuvers inside the large demonstration bay. It was impressive, Day thought, but Vraxen's movements seemed stiff. The fighter could clearly do more than what the pilot was showing. After 10 minutes, the Apex landed and Vraxen climbed out. Day noticed the pilot seemed relieved to exit the cockpit. He stretched his shoulders and neck as he stood on the platform. The Apex class represents Srellan superiority, Thesic announced. We are so confident in our design that we offer a challenge to the Galactic Council. The room went quiet. Challenges from the Srellans were rare, and usually involved some kind of trap. Any species that can successfully pilot the Apex will receive 50 fighters as a gift, Thesic said, his mouth curving into what might have been a smile, along with a full military alliance with the Srellan Empire. The crowd exploded with noise. 50 Apex fighters would change the military balance for any species. The smaller nations looked excited. The larger empires looked suspicious. Of course, Thesic added, the pilot must demonstrate full control. They must complete our standard combat flight test, and they must do so without assistance or modification to the fighter. It's a trap, Day said quietly. Obviously, Hana agreed. But why? Day pulled out his datapad and started pulling up information. The Apex specifications were public now, part of the demonstration. He scrolled through the measurements, comparing them to files he had memorized years ago. His eyes widened. "Ambassador," he said slowly, "I need to see the cockpit dimensions again." Hana looked at him curiously but pulled up the data on her own pad. She showed him the screen. Day compared the numbers to his old files. Then he compared them again, thinking he must have made a mistake. But no, the numbers were clear. "What is it?" Hana asked. "The cockpit," Day said, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's almost exactly the same size as an F-16. Hana blinked. "The old Earth fighter? From the 21st century?" "Exactly the same," Day confirmed. He looked up at the Apex, then at Thesic, then back at his datapad. "Ambassador, I think the Srellans have a problem they don't know about." "Explain." "Look at Vraxen. He barely fit in that cockpit. And look at Thesic. He's even bigger. When was the last time you saw a Srellan that wasn't at least 7 feet tall?" Understanding dawned on Hana's face. "But the fighter is supposed to be designed for them." "Designed by them," Day corrected. "But when? How old is this design?" They both looked back at the platform, where Thesic was accepting congratulations from other species representatives. None of them had volunteered to try flying the Apex yet. They were all too smart to fall for an obvious trap. But what if it wasn't a trap? What if the Srellans had accidentally trapped themselves? Day smiled for the first time that day. "Ambassador, I think I want to volunteer." Hana looked at him like he had lost his mind. "You want to what?" "I want to fly that fighter," Day said, still staring at the Apex. His hands were already itching for the controls. "Because I think I'll fit just fine." The first volunteer was a Gordanian named Throck. He was a bear-like creature covered in brown fur, standing nearly 9 feet tall with muscles that could bend steel. His species was known for strength and bravery, sometimes more bravery than sense. Day watched from the observation area as Throck approached the Apex fighter. The Gordanian looked confident, waving to the crowd with one massive paw. The Srellans stood to the side, their faces showing barely hidden amusement. "This will not go well," said a voice beside Day. He turned to see Taewon Lim, a human engineer who had been studying the Apex specifications since the demonstration started. Taewon was younger than Day, maybe 30, with quick eyes that missed nothing. "No," Day agreed. "It will not." Throck reached the fighter and tried to climb into the cockpit. His massive shoulders got stuck immediately. He pushed harder, grunting with effort. The entire fighter rocked on its landing struts. For a moment it looked like Throck might actually force himself inside through sheer determination. Then the fighter's emergency systems activated. A warning siren blared and the cockpit rejected the pilot, sliding the canopy closed with Throck still halfway outside. The Gordanian tumbled backward onto the platform, landing with a heavy thud that shook the floor. The crowd gasped. Some laughed. Thesic maintained a neutral expression, but his eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Perhaps someone smaller?" the High Commander suggested. Next came a Tenthraxian, an insect-like alien with 6 limbs and compound eyes. The Tenthraxians were known for their precision and had some of the best pilots in the galaxy. Their representative, a diplomat named Clixus, scuttled up to the fighter with confidence. Day leaned forward, interested. The Tenthraxian was certainly small enough to fit. Clixus entered the cockpit smoothly, her 6 limbs finding positions on various controls. For a moment it looked promising. Then she tried to activate the neural interface. The system sparked and died. Clixus made a clicking sound of distress and quickly exited the cockpit. She reported to her delegation in rapid clicks that the translator struggled to follow. "Neural interface rejected her brain structure," Taewon said, checking his datapad. "The system is designed specifically for Srellan neural patterns, or at least patterns close enough to Srellan." "Who else has similar brain structure?" Day asked. "That's the interesting part," Taewon said. "According to the medical database, humans are surprisingly close. Something about our mammalian brain development following similar patterns to Srellan reptilian evolution. Convergent development, the scientists call it." Day filed that information away. More species tried and failed. The Vryn, bird-like creatures with hollow bones and excellent reflexes, couldn't work the hand controls properly. Their talons were too large. The Quellan, a species of intelligent amphibians, couldn't handle the dry environment inside the cockpit. Their skin started to crack after only a few minutes. Each failure made the Srellans more smug. Thesic stood with his arms crossed, occasionally offering sympathetic comments that dripped with false concern. Perhaps the challenge is too difficult, a Draxian representative suggested. The Draxians were known for their diplomatic skills and rarely volunteered for anything risky. Perhaps, Thesic agreed. We Srellans simply possess unique qualities. It is not your fault that you lack them. Day felt his jaw tighten. He looked at Ambassador Hana, who stood with the other human delegates. She caught his eye and gave a tiny shake of her head. Not yet, she was saying. Jisun Park approached them. She was a xenobiologist, assigned to study alien species for the diplomatic corps. She carried a datapad filled with notes. I've been reviewing Srellan evolutionary history, she said without greeting. Jisun never wasted time on pleasantries. Something interesting. The Srellans have been genetically modifying themselves for the past 300 years. Why? Taewan asked. Status, strength, intimidation, Jisun said. Larger Srellans get better positions in their society. So families pay for genetic enhancements. Each generation gets a bit bigger. It's subtle, but over 3 centuries it adds up. Day looked at the apex fighter, then at Thesic. How much bigger? About 15% on average, Jisun said. Maybe more for the military caste. They tend to enhance the most. And when was the apex designed? Day asked, though he already suspected the answer. Jisun checked her pad. The basic design is 200 years old. They've updated the technology, but the physical cockpit dimensions haven't changed. It's considered a classic design, perfect and untouchable. Taewan started laughing. They can't fit in their own fighters. The older pilots can, Jisun corrected. Barely, but the new generation, the enhanced ones, they're too big. That's why Vraxen looked so uncomfortable, Day said. He was probably the smallest pilot they could find. Another species tried to fly the apex, this time a Kelsorian, a species of energy beings who used mechanical suits. The attempt lasted 3 minutes before the neural interface overloaded from trying to connect with non-biological intelligence. The Kelsorian suit sparked and smoked as they retreated from the fighter. Medical teams rushed forward to help. Thesic stepped forward. Perhaps we should conclude the demonstration. It appears no species has the necessary. I'll try, Day said loudly. The room went silent. Every species turned to look at the human who had spoken. Day stepped out from the observation area and walked toward the platform. His heart was pounding, but he kept his face calm. Ambassador Hana closed her eyes briefly, then opened them and nodded. She trusted his judgment. Thesic stared at Day with obvious confusion. A human? Humans are new to the Council. You have no reputation as pilots. Your technology is generations behind most species. That's true, Day said, climbing onto the platform. He was aware of every camera drone focusing on him, sending his image across the galaxy. But we have a saying on Earth. You don't know until you try. The Srellan High Commander's confusion turned to amusement. Then he started laughing. It was a deep, rumbling sound. Other Srellans joined in. Soon half the room was laughing or making their species equivalent sound. A human, Thesic said, still laughing. Oh, this is wonderful. Yes, please, try. Show us what primitive Earth pilots can do. Sub-Commander. Krillik, Thesic's second, leaned close to his commander and whispered something. Thesic waved him away dismissively. Day ignored the laughter. He had heard it before, back when humanity first joined the Council. Everyone thought humans were weak, slow, and technologically backward. Sometimes that was useful. People underestimated you. He approached the apex fighter. Up close, it was even more beautiful. The craftsmanship was incredible. The Srellans might be arrogant, but they built amazing things. Day put his hand on the cockpit rim and pulled himself up. The opening was small, designed for efficiency. He slid one leg in, then the other, and lowered himself into the pilot's seat. It fit perfectly. His feet reached the pedals naturally. His hands fell onto the control sticks without stretching. The neural interface helmet was right where his head needed it to be. Everything felt right, like the cockpit had been designed specifically for him. Day looked up at Thesic through the canopy. The High Commander's laughter had stopped. His face showed the first hint of concern. "Let's see what this thing can do," Day said quietly, reaching for the power controls. The neural interface activated with a soft hum that Day felt more than heard. It was like the fighter was waking up and recognizing him. Lines of data appeared on the canopy display, showing system status in Srellan script that his translator quickly converted to English. Everything was green. Every system was ready. Day placed his hands on the control sticks. They felt good, balanced, and responsive. He pressed his feet against the pedals, testing their resistance. Perfect. It reminded him of the old simulators from his academy days, before Earth had learned to build ships with artificial gravity. Neural link established, a computer voice said in his ear. Biometric scan complete. "Welcome, pilot." In the observation area, Taewan's eyes went wide. "It accepted him," he said to Jisun. "The interface actually accepted him." "Of course it did," Jisun replied, checking her readings. "His brain structure is close enough to Srellan patterns. I told you. On Earth, billions of humans were watching through the holofeed. In a small apartment in Seoul, Bo Young-shin leaned forward in her chair. She had served with Day in the Earth Defense Force, flying patrol missions around Mars. She knew what he was capable of. "Don't embarrass us. D," she whispered to the screen. Back on Council Station, Thesic's amusement had vanished. He leaned toward Subcommander Krillic. "How is this possible?" he hissed in the Srellan language, forgetting that translator technology could pick up whispers. Krillic consulted his datapad nervously. "Commander, the Apex series was designed during the reign of Emperor Thesos III. That was 217 years ago. The average Srellan height then was—" "I don't need a history lesson," Thesic snapped. But his scales had paled slightly, a sign of stress in Srellans. Technical Officer Cyrix approached them quietly. She was smaller than most modern Srellans, which was probably why she worked with the older fighters. "Commander, I should inform you that we've had difficulty fitting modern pilots in the Apex series. During the test phase last month, Pilot Master Vraxon required assistance to extract himself from the cockpit after a 4-hour flight. He submitted a complaint about the cramped conditions." Thesic's eyes narrowed. "Why wasn't I informed?" "You were," Cyrix said softly. "I sent 3 reports. Your office said you were too busy to review technical details." In the cockpit, Day was running through the pre-flight checklist. His fingers moved over the controls with practiced ease. "Flip this switch. Check that reading. Confirm the power flow." He had done this thousands of times before, just in different fighters. The Apex responded beautifully to each command. The systems were more advanced than anything on Earth, but the basic principles were the same. Thrust, lift, power, control. The mathematics of flight didn't change no matter who built the ship. "Pre-flight complete," Day said into the communication system, requesting permission to launch. In the control room, the Srellan flight coordinator looked at Thesic for guidance. The High Commander's jaw tightened. He could still stop this. He could claim a technical problem or a scheduling conflict, but hundreds of species were watching. Billions of beings across the galaxy had their attention focused on Council Station Nexus 7. If he stopped the human now, it would look like fear. "Permission granted," Thesic said. His voice was cold. "You will follow the standard test pattern. Any deviation will result in immediate disqualification." "Understood," Day replied. The demonstration bay's roof opened, revealing the stars beyond. The atmospheric shield shimmered into place, holding the air inside while allowing ships to pass through. Day took a breath. Then he engaged the engines. The Apex lifted off the platform smoothly. The fighter rose through the bay opening and out into space. Stars surrounded Day on all sides, beautiful and cold and infinite. For the first time in 5 years since he had left active duty, he was flying again. It felt like coming home. "Beginning test pattern," Day announced. He pushed the throttle forward gently, accelerating away from the station. The Apex responded instantly, smooth as silk. The test pattern was basic, designed to show control and precision. A series of turns, rolls, and speed changes. Any pilot with basic training could do it. But Day had more than basic training. He completed the first turn, bringing the fighter around in a smooth arc. The G-forces pressed him into the seat, but they were manageable. Comfortable, even. His body fit the cockpit so well that the pressure distributed evenly. "Control is excellent," he reported. "No drift, no lag. This is a beautiful machine." In the observation room, Ambassador Hana allowed herself a small smile. Day was showing respect for the Srellan engineering, which would make it harder for them to claim he was mocking them. Day executed a barrel roll, then a loop, then a combination of both. The apex moved exactly as he commanded, with no delay between thought and action. The neural interface was learning his patterns, adapting to his style. On Earth, Bo Young was grinning. "That's not the test pattern," she said. "That's showing off," she was right. Day was going beyond the required maneuvers. He brought the fighter into a complex spiral, then reversed direction in a move that should have been impossible for most ships. The Apex handled it easily. "He's pulling at least 8 Gs, Taewon said, checking his instruments. "How is he conscious?" "Earth gravity is 1.0, Jisun explained. Most council species come from worlds with 0.6 to 0.8 gravity. Humans evolved for higher G-forces than most species can handle." Thesic watched the displays with growing horror. The human was good. Better than good. He was flying the Apex better than Vraxen had. Better than any Srellan pilot in the recent demonstrations. Worse, he was making it look easy. Day brought the fighter closer to the station, performing a high-speed pass that made some observers flinch. He was grinning inside the helmet. The Apex was incredible. The acceleration, the maneuverability, the response time. Earth's fighter designers would study this technology for decades. Approaching final test phase, Day announced. The final phase required precision, flying through a series of holographic gates projected in space. Miss a gate and you failed. Hit a gate and you definitely failed. There were 50 gates arranged in a complicated three-dimensional pattern. The record time for completing the course was 18 seconds, set by Vraxen during the demonstration. Day studied the pattern for exactly 3 seconds. Then he punched the throttle. The Apex shot forward. Day's hands moved constantly on the controls, making tiny adjustments. Left, right, up, down, roll, straighten. He flew through the gates in a smooth, flowing motion, like a dancer who knew every step perfectly. 12 seconds later, he emerged from the final gate. The observation room was silent. Even the translator devices seemed to have stopped working as every species tried to process what they had just seen. Day brought the Apex back to the demonstration bay and landed with barely a bump. The engines powered down. The cockpit canopy opened. Day stood up easily, stepped onto the fighter's wing, and jumped down to the platform. He wasn't even breathing hard. He looked at Thesic and smiled. "The Apex is an amazing fighter," he said. "Earth would be honored to accept your generous offer of 50 ships and a military alliance." Thesic's mouth opened, but no sound came out.
His scales had gone completely pale.
Behind him, Krillic was desperately trying to find a regulation. Any regulation that would let them escape this disaster. Around the galaxy, the holofeed exploded with commentary. The human had done it. The primitive, backward human had flown the unflyable fighter and set a new record in the process. In the observation room, Hana was already on her communicator calling Earth. "Get me the defense secretary," she said. "And someone who understands fighter logistics. We're about to have a very interesting negotiation." The news spread across the galaxy faster than light-speed communication. Within hours, every civilized world knew about the human who had flown the Srellan Apex fighter better than the Srellans themselves. The holofeed networks couldn't get enough of it. On Earth, the story dominated every channel. Day's flight was analyzed from every angle. Experts discussed the implications for human-Srellan relations. Comedians made jokes about oversized lizards in undersized cockpits. Children played games pretending to be Day, hero pilot. Bo Young watched the replays for the 20th time, still smiling. Her communicator buzzed. It was a message from Earth Defense Force Command. They wanted her to report for duty. Something about forming a new squadron. On Council Station Nexus 7, Thesic was having the worst week of his career. He sat in his private chambers, surrounded by his advisors. They were all arguing at once. "We could claim equipment malfunction," one suggested. "The human completed the test perfectly," another countered. The entire galaxy watched. "We must honor the agreement," Subcommander Krillic said quietly. To refuse would be worse than the embarrassment. Thesik slammed his fist on the table. I will not give 50 Apex fighters to humans. They are barely more advanced than primitives. Commander, Technical Officer Sarek said carefully. She had brought detailed reports. I've completed the analysis you requested. The human pilot fit the Apex cockpit specifications better than 90% of our current military pilots. His body dimensions match the design parameters almost exactly. How is that possible? Thesik demanded. Cyrix pulled up holographic displays showing Shrelin evolutionary data. When the Apex was designed, the average Shrelin male was 6 feet 2 inches tall and weighed approximately 180 pounds. Today, after 2 centuries of genetic enhancement, the average Shrelin military pilot is 7 feet 4 inches and weighs 290 pounds. The room went quiet. We're too big for our own fighters, Krillik said slowly. Not just the Apex, Cyrix continued. She looked miserable delivering this news. I've been reviewing our entire fleet. 60% of our fighter designs were created more than a century ago. They're all experiencing similar issues. Our pilots complain about cramped cockpits, limited range of motion, and fatigue from compressed positions. Why wasn't this reported? Thesik asked, his voice dangerous. It was, Cyrix said, multiple times. But the reports were dismissed as pilots complaining about minor discomforts. No one wanted to admit that our enhancements had created a problem. Thesik looked at the data displays, his face unreadable. Finally, he spoke. What are our options? We honor the agreement, Krillik said. We give the humans their 50 fighters and the Alliance. Then we quietly begin redesigning our fleet for modern Shrelin physiology. That will take years, another advisor protested, and cost enormous resources. The alternative is worse, Krillik said. If we refuse to honor the challenge, every species in the galaxy will know we're afraid of humans. If we admit our fleet has design problems, we look incompetent. But if we give the humans the fighters gracefully and begin a quiet modernization program, we maintain some dignity. Thesik stared at his second-in-command for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Arrange a meeting with Ambassador Yoon. We will negotiate the terms of the transfer. 3 days later, Ambassador Hana sat across from Thesik in a neutral conference room. Both had their delegations with them. Day was there along with Taewon and Jisun. On the Shrelin side, Krillik and Cyrix accompanied their commander. The Shrelin Empire honors its commitments, Thesik said. He spoke formally for the official record. Pilot Dae Kwan successfully completed our challenge. Therefore, humanity will receive 50 Apex-class fighters and a military alliance with our empire. Hana nodded graciously. Earth is grateful for this generous offer. We look forward to a productive partnership. However, Thesik continued, we must discuss the terms of the alliance. This was expected. The real negotiation was about to begin. The Apex fighters require specialized training, Thesik said. We propose a joint training program. Shrelin instructors will teach human pilots the proper techniques. That's acceptable, Hana agreed. We would also like to establish a technical exchange program. Human engineers could work with Shrelin engineers to better understand the Apex systems. Thesik hesitated. Allowing humans access to their technology was risky. But Krillik leaned close and whispered something. Thesik's expression changed slightly. An exchange program is acceptable, Thesik said. In fact, we would welcome human input on certain technical matters. Taewon caught Dae's eye. That was interesting. The Shrelins were asking for help, even if they weren't saying it directly. The negotiation continued for hours. Trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, technology sharing protocols. Hana was an experienced diplomat, and she extracted favorable terms while allowing Thesik to maintain his dignity. Finally, they reached an unusual clause. The Shrelin Empire is undertaking a fleet modernization program, Krillik said, taking over the negotiation from Thesik. We're interested in human expertise regarding cockpit ergonomics and pilot comfort systems. Taewon almost laughed but managed to control himself. The Shrelins wanted help redesigning their cockpits to fit their enlarged bodies. Earth would be happy to provide consultation, Hana said smoothly. We have extensive experience with cockpit design for various body types and sizes. Our ergonomics specialist could offer valuable insights. That would be acceptable, Thesik said. He looked like the words hurt. The agreement was finalized. The holofeed networks reported on the historic Human-Shrelin alliance. Most of the analysis focused on the military implications. A few commentators noticed the ergonomics clause and speculated about its meaning. 1 week later, the first Apex fighters arrived on Earth. They landed at Edwards Air Force Base in California, where Earth's best pilots had gathered. Bo Young was among them, along with 49 other selected pilots. Day was there too, though not as a pilot. He was the liaison officer, responsible for coordinating with the Srellan instructors who had come to oversee the training. Bo Young approached her first Apex fighter with reverence. She ran her hand along the smooth hull, feeling the advanced materials. "These are really ours?" she asked. "Really ours," Dee confirmed. 50 of the best fighters in the galaxy. "Because you fit in the seat," Bo Young said, shaking her head in amazement. "That's the craziest thing I've ever heard." "Not the craziest," Day said. "The craziest thing is that the Srellans didn't realize they'd outgrown their own fighters." A Srellan instructor approached them. It was Pilot Master Vraxen himself, looking uncomfortable in the Earth atmosphere and gravity. He nodded respectfully to Bo Young. "You are Pilot Shin?" he asked. "Yes, sir," Bo Young said. "I am told you have extensive flight experience." "Good. The Apex requires skilled pilots. It is a demanding machine." "I'm ready to learn," Bo Young said. Vraxen studied her for a moment. Then he did something unexpected. He smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Between us, pilot to pilot, I am glad these fighters will be well used. They are too good to sit idle because we grew too large for them." Bo Young blinked in surprise at the honesty. "Sir? The Apex was my favorite fighter when I was younger," Vraxen said quietly. "Before my final enhancement treatments. Now I can barely fold myself into the cockpit. It is frustrating to know these beautiful machines exist but cannot be properly utilized." "We'll take good care of them," Bo Young promised. "I know you will," Vraxen said. "Come, let me show you the proper startup sequence." As they walked toward the fighter, Day watched with satisfaction. This was working better than he'd hoped. The Srellans were proud people, but they weren't stupid. They recognized quality when they saw it, even if it came from a species they'd previously dismissed. His communicator buzzed. It was a message from Ambassador Hana. "The Galactic Council is proposing new standardized ergonomic requirements for all military equipment." The Srellan Empire seconded the proposal. Someone there has a sense of humor. Day smiled. The great downsizing, as the human comedians were calling it, was turning into something positive. Maybe even the beginning of a real friendship between Earth and the Srellan Empire. He watched Bo Young climb into the Apex cockpit, fitting perfectly, just as he had. Sometimes being average-sized was exactly the right size to be. 6 months after the famous flight, things had changed considerably. The 50 Apex fighters were now fully operational with Earth Defense Force, and the human pilots had become some of the most skilled Apex operators in the galaxy. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. Day stood in the hangar at Edwards Air Force Base watching mechanics work on the fighters. The humans had made some modifications with Srellan approval. Nothing major, just practical improvements. Better seat cushions, improved air circulation, a cup holder, which the Srellans had found baffling until someone explained that humans like to drink coffee during long patrols. "They're adding storage compartments to mine," Bo Young said, walking up beside him. She wore the flight suit of the 1st Apex Squadron, with the new pad showing a human hand fitting perfectly into a Srellan glove. It was a design that made the Srellans grumble but couldn't really complain about. "For what?" Dee asked. "Snacks, mostly," Bo Young said with a grin. "Turns out you get hungry on 8-hour patrol flights. The Srellans don't eat during flights, but we're not Srellans." "No," Day agreed. "We're definitely not." His communicator buzzed. It was Ambassador Hana, calling from Council Station. He accepted the video call. "Day," Hana said, looking pleased. "Good news. The Srellan Empire has officially requested human assistance with their fleet modernization program. They want to hire Earth engineers to redesign cockpits for 200 fighter models." "That's a lot of work," Day said. "That's a lot of money," Hana corrected, "and influence. This puts Earth in a position of technical authority. Other species are watching. If we do good work for the Srellans, we'll get more contracts." "Who would have thought?" Bo Young said. "Earth becoming famous for making alien cockpits comfortable." "It's not glamorous," Hana admitted, "but it's valuable, and it's something we're genuinely good at. We've had to design equipment for extreme size variations on Earth. Everything from small pilots to large ones, different body types, different needs. That experience translates well to alien species. After the call ended, Day and Bo Young walked through the hangar. Taewon was there, working with a team of engineers on one of the Apex fighters. They were installing new sensor packages combining Srelin technology with human improvements. "How's it going?" Day asked. "Excellent," Taewon said, not looking up from his work. "The Srelin sensor systems are incredible, but they were designed for Srelin eyes. We're adapting them for human visual range. The Srelins are actually interested in what we're doing. They think some of our modifications might work for them too." "Are we teaching the Srelins how to build better fighters?" Bo Young asked. "No," Taewon said. "We're teaching them how to build fighters that fit the pilots. There's a difference. They already know how to make amazing technology. They just forgot to make sure their pilots could use it comfortably." Ji-sun appeared from another part of the hangar. She had been on Earth for 3 months, working on the Alliance project. "You need to see this," she said, holding out her datapad. The screen showed a news report from the Srelin homeworld. A government official was announcing a new policy. Genetic enhancement regulations were being revised. Future enhancements would consider practical factors like equipment compatibility, not just size and strength. "They're actually changing their enhancement programs?" Dee asked, surprised. "The military insisted," Ji-sun explained. "After it came out that 60% of their fleet had compatibility issues, the generals demanded changes. It's causing a lot of debate in their society. We accidentally started a cultural revolution," Bo Young said. "Sort of," Ji-sun agreed, "but it was coming anyway. The Srelins are practical people. Once they saw the problem, they couldn't ignore it. We just helped them see it." A shuttle landed outside the hangar. From it emerged a Srelin delegation, led by Sub-Commander Krillik. He had become the main Srelin liaison to Earth, and he visited regularly. Behind him walked several Srelin engineers, all carrying equipment cases. "Commander," Day greeted him. "Officer Kwan," Krillik replied. He had learned to pronounce Korean names correctly, which was more than most aliens managed. "I bring a proposal from the Srelin High Command." They moved to a conference room. Krillik laid out holographic displays showing fighter designs. "These are our next-generation fighters," he explained. "We would like human input during the design phase, not after construction. Your ergonomics team would work directly with our engineers from the beginning." Taewon studied the designs with interest. "That's a significant level of trust." "We have learned the value of practical design," Krillik said. "Pride is worthless if your pilots cannot effectively use their equipment. Earth has expertise we lack. It makes sense to collaborate." "What about High Commander Thesic?" Hana asked. She had joined the meeting via holofeed. "I'm surprised he approved this." Krillik's expression was carefully neutral. "Commander Thesic has retired to focus on personal projects. I have assumed his position as High Commander." Day caught the implication. Thesic had been removed from command, probably because of the Apex embarrassment. Krillik, who had been smart enough to see the problem and adapt, had been promoted. "Congratulations on your promotion, High Commander," Hana said. "Thank you, Ambassador," Krillik replied. "I hope this marks a new era of practical cooperation between our species." The meeting continued for several hours, working out details of the collaboration. The Srelins would provide technology and resources. Earth would provide design expertise and practical testing. Both sides would benefit. When the Srelins finally left, Day walked back out to the hangar. One of the Apex fighters was preparing for a training flight. He watched as the pilot, a young woman named Hee-Rin Song, went through her pre-flight checklist. She moved with confidence, completely comfortable in the cockpit that had been designed by aliens 200 years ago. "You started something interesting," a voice said behind him. It was Chancellor Woojin Na, Earth's representative to the Galactic Council. He had arrived quietly, as was his style. "I just flew a fighter," Day said. "You did more than that," Woojin said. "You showed the galaxy that humans can adapt to anything, that we can take alien technology and use it as well as or better than the species who built it. That's valuable." "It was just about fitting in a seat," Day protested. Woojin smiled. "Yes, exactly. While other species were trying to force themselves into the wrong-sized equipment, humans simply fit. We're not the strongest species. We're not the smartest or the fastest, but we're adaptable. We can work with almost anything. That's our strength." Hee-Rin's Apex launched, streaking into the sky with a roar of engines. It was beautiful to watch. Alien technology, human pilot working together perfectly. What happens next? Day asked. Next, we build on this success, Wujin said. The Galactic Council is taking Earth more seriously now. We're getting requests for consultation from other species. Everyone wants to know if their equipment needs human-style ergonomic improvements. Some want to hire human pilots. Others want human engineers. We're becoming valuable. Because we fit in small spaces, Day said, still slightly amazed by the whole situation. Because we fit where we're needed, Wujin corrected. That's always been humanity's gift. We adapt, we find solutions. We make things work. Whether it's surviving on a hostile planet or flying an alien fighter, humans find a way. 2 months later, a ceremony was held on Council Station Nexus 7. Earth was officially recognized as a major spacefaring species, no longer classified as emerging. The Srellan Empire sponsored the elevation, which surprised many species. High Commander Krillic gave a speech. Earth has shown us the value of practical thinking over pride, he said. They have taught us that good design means equipment that works for the user, not users who must adapt to poor design. This is wisdom the Srellan Empire respects and appreciates. Day watched from the human delegation section. He still couldn't quite believe that flying one fighter had led to all of this. But Wujin was right. It wasn't about the flight. It was about what the flight represented: human adaptability, human practicality, human willingness to try something everyone else said was impossible. After the ceremony, Dai was approached by several young Srellans. They were smaller than the average modern Srellan, not yet old enough for enhancement treatments. Officer Quan, one of them said shyly, "We want to be pilots. Like you, can we?" "Why not?" Day said. "You'll fit the cockpits better than the enhanced Srellans." "Our parents want us to get treatments," another said. "To be bigger and stronger." Day thought carefully about his answer. "Being bigger isn't always better," he finally said. "Sometimes the best pilots are the ones who fit their machines. Talk to High Commander Krillic. I hear he started a new program for natural-sized pilots." The young Srellans looked at each other with hope. They thanked Day and hurried off. Bo Young had watched the exchange. "You're giving career advice to alien children now?" "Apparently," Day said. "How did we get here?" "One small seat at a time," Bo Young said, laughing at her own joke. That night, Day sat in his quarters on the station looking out at the stars. His communicator showed messages from Earth. His story was being taught in schools now, used as an example of creative problem-solving. There were offers for book deals, movie rights, speaking engagements. But what made him smile was a message from Edwards.